Before we begin, I want to welcome you to our channel. For those who are new here, our mission is to share genuine Christian testimonies from around the world, spreading the powerful message of God's kingdom. We focus on stories about Jesus, the afterlife, heaven and hell, and other Bible-related topics, bringing them to you in engaging story form twice or 3 times a week. We invite you to become a member of this family by subscribing to our channel. God bless you as you do so. Today's experience was sent to us by a sister. She lived a life that is contrary to that which God requires of believers, and the end was a horrible and terrible experience you won't want to be told. I will begin reading as sent to us. Hello, Daily Renewal. I chose to share this experience so to let those who still in my former way of life to stop, because what I saw in hell is shocking and unbelievable. My name is Childers, from South Africa. My father was the local pastor. He was man deeply respected by the everyone for his faith and dedication to God. He was a figure in my life, always guiding me with the principles of the Bible. My mother, a woman of grace and strength, did everything she could to support us. She was my first teacher, instilling in me the importance of education and moral values. From a young age, my days were of church activities and schoolwork. Every morning we had family devotion, where my father would read from the Bible and lead us in prayer. My parents' love for God and their dedication to our family were evident in everything they did. They made sure I attended Sunday school, youth group meetings, and every church service. They taught me to trust in God, to pray, and to live a life that reflected His love. Their influence shaped my early years, embedding in me a strong sense of right and wrong, and a deep love for God. The day I received my admission letter to the university was one of the happiest days of my life. This was my chance to make something of myself, to bring honor to my family, and to fulfill the dreams my parents had for me. Leaving home was bittersweet, but I was excited about the new chapter ahead. When I arrived at the university, I was assigned a room in one of the student hostels. My roommates were a lively and diverse group of girls. I would love to keep their identity hidden. They welcomed me warmly, and we quickly became friends. They were different from anyone I had known back home, full of energy and always looking for fun. It didn't take long for my new friends to introduce me to their lifestyle. One Friday night, they invited me to join them at a popular nightclub off campus. At first, I resisted the pull of the new lifestyle. The teachings of my father and the values my mother instilled in me were deeply rooted. Each time my friends invited me out, I would hesitate, feeling a pang of guilt and a whisper of my father's sermons about the dangers of straying from the righteous path. But the allure of their carefree lives and the promise of fun gradually wore down my resistance. One evening, after a particularly stressful week of exams, my friends convinced me to join them at a party. I agreed, convincing myself that I deserved a break. That night marked the beginning of my subsequent fall. The party was held at an off-campus apartment, and the atmosphere was electric. Music blared, people danced, and the air was thick with the scent of alcohol. I was handed a red Solo cup filled with a colorful drink. I took a cautious sip, feeling the unfamiliar burn of alcohol down my throat. The initial taste was harsh, but as the night wore on, I found myself drinking more and feeling the heavy weight of my worries lift. After that initial taste, it became easier to say yes to my friends' invitations. What started as occasional nights out turned into a regular routine. Every weekend, we would hit the clubs, each night blending into the next. The music, the dancing, and the alcohol became a refuge from the rigors of my studies and the homesickness that sometimes gripped me. The values and teachings that once defined me began to fade. I stopped attending church services, finding excuses to skip the weekly calls home where my parents would ask if I was keeping up with my faith. The further I drifted, the easier it became to ignore the nagging sense of guilt and the distant memories of my father's sermons and my mother's prayers. In my desperation, I turned to prayer for the first time in months. I knelt by my bed, tears streaming down my face, and cried out to God for forgiveness. "Lord, I've lost my way," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "Please forgive me for all I've done. Help me find my way back to you." For a while, it seemed to work. My grades improved, and I felt a sense of peace and clarity that had been missing for so long. I even reconnected with a local church group, finding solace in the fellowship and support they offered. The joy and fulfillment that came from living a life aligned with my faith were like a balm to my weary soul. However, the struggle was far from over. The pull of my old life was strong, and the temptation to return to the carefree, hedonistic lifestyle was always lurking. Despite my efforts to change, the journey of repentance proved to be more challenging than I anticipated, as old habits and influences were not easily discarded. My resolve to stay on the righteous path began to waver as my roommates continued their carefree lifestyles. I returned to the clubs, the music, and the alcohol with a vengeance. The thrill that had once felt empty now seemed intoxicating again. I started seeing different men, engaging in sexual affairs driven by the need for validation and the allure of quick money. The fleeting moments of pleasure masked the deeper pain and emptiness I felt inside. Throughout my time at university, my parents faithfully sent me money every month. They worked hard to ensure I had everything I needed, always reminding me to use it wisely and focus on my studies. Each time I received their support, I felt a pang of guilt for the lies I told about how well I was doing and how I was using the money. Despite the steady flow of money from my parents, I was never satisfied. My expenses grew with my indulgent lifestyle. Nights out, new clothes, and the latest gadgets drained my funds quickly. The more I spent, the more I felt the need to have, always chasing the next thrill or trend. My financial management was non-existent, and I often found myself running out of money well before the month ended. In desperation, I began to rely on the men I met for additional money, using them to fund my desires. The money I received from my parents, meant for books and necessities, went towards my ever-growing list of wants. My lack of contentment drove me deeper into reckless spending, leaving me in a constant state of financial turmoil. As my involvement in clubbing and casual relationships became more frequent, I realized the importance of avoiding pregnancy. I educated myself about different contraceptive methods and began using them diligently. I learned about various options, pills, condoms, and other preventive measures, and made sure to use them during my encounters. The fear of facing an unplanned pregnancy was a constant worry, and I became meticulous about avoiding it. Despite my efforts to prevent pregnancy, I found myself pregnant for the first time. The situation was overwhelming. I couldn't imagine facing my parents or dealing with the consequences of my actions. I chose to have an abortion, a decision that seemed like the only way out at the time. The process was difficult, but I managed to keep it hidden, returning to my life as if nothing had changed. However, the cycle repeated. Soon after, I was pregnant again, this time with someone I barely knew. The fear and shame were even greater, but I made the same choice. Another abortion, another secret to keep. Each procedure was a harsh reminder of how far I had strayed from the path I was raised to follow, but I pushed the guilt aside, focusing instead on maintaining my lifestyle and avoiding the reality of my decisions. As I entered my final year at university, the stress of impending exams and the pressure of completing my studies were mounting. To my dismay, I discovered I was pregnant again. The timing couldn't have been worse. My academic future was at stake, and the thought of facing my parents with this news was unbearable. The weight of this pregnancy was different from the previous ones. I ultimately decided to proceed with the abortion. The fear of disappointing my parents and the desire to avoid facing the consequences drove my decision. I obtained the same abortion pills I had used before, hoping for a quick resolution. But this time, the process was far more complicated and painful than I had anticipated. The day I took the abortion pills for the third time, I was filled with anxiety. I had done this before, but something felt different this time. As the medication began to take effect, the pain started to intensify, far beyond what I had experienced with the previous abortions. I felt a sharp, searing pain that seemed to tear through my abdomen, unlike anything I had ever felt before. It felt as though my insides were being shredded, and I could barely stand or move. The pain became unbearable, and I collapsed onto my bed. My friends, noticing my distress, quickly realized something was wrong and rushed me to the campus clinic. The pain intensified with every moment. As we arrived at the clinic, I felt like I was losing control, my body racked with sharp, cutting pain. The clinic staff scrambled to stabilize me, but the situation was rapidly escalating beyond their control. I felt my consciousness slipping away as the pain overwhelmed me, and I began to sense that I was drifting away from my body. As I lost consciousness, I had an out-of-body experience. I watched from above as my friends and the medical staff worked frantically to save me. I floated through the clinic, feeling detached from my physical form, and then I was pulled into a dark, swirling void. The darkness was suffocating, and I could hear the distant cries of tormented souls. Suddenly, I found myself in a place that was terrifying. It was a realm of intense suffering and despair. I saw fiery pits and heard the anguished cries of souls enduring unimaginable torment. The heat was so great. The demons that tormented the souls were cruel and relentless, their mocking voices the sins of those they tortured. As I was dragged, the demons began to taunt me, reminding me of my sins and the lives I had ended. Their voices were filled with malice as they recounted my actions and the lives I had taken. In the bleak and fiery expanse of hell, the demons that surrounded me were terrifying and relentless. They knew my sins intimately and used this knowledge to torment me further. Their accusations were harsh and unrelenting. They reminded me of every sin I had committed, each wrong choice in their voices as they mocked me for my actions. They made statements such as, "You took lives that were not yours to take. You turned your back on the path of righteousness. You betrayed your own flesh and blood." They made sure I knew the gravity of my sins, taunting me with the weight of my guilt and ensuring that I was fully aware of the lives I had ended through abortion. The cries of babies in hell were heart-wrenching and constant. The sound was an unbearable of sorrow and anguish, piercing through the tormenting heat and darkness. The cries seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, creating an overwhelming sense of despair. Each wail was filled with an innocent and unfulfilled hope. The specific torments for those who had committed abortion were both physical and psychological. I witnessed other souls undergoing brutal forms of punishment that mirrored their earthly sins. For those who had ended lives through abortion, the torment was especially harsh. They were thrown into pits of fire, where the flames seared their bodies in a cycle of endless burning. The fire did not consume them, but instead tortured them repeatedly, reflecting the fiery rage of their guilt. Demons used instruments of sharp, unrelenting pain, resembling the tools used during the abortions, to inflict suffering. These instruments seemed to cut and tear at the soul, symbolizing the violence and betrayal they had enacted. Those who had ended lives were often isolated from other souls, left alone to face their torment without solace. This isolation amplified their suffering, as they were cut off from any hope of comfort or redemption. Amidst the darkness and relentless torment, four angels suddenly appeared. Their appearance was like a of light in the midst of hellish chaos. Each angel was distinct, yet their combined light brought a soothing contrast to the surrounding despair. They emanated an aura of peace and divine authority. As they approached, the demons recoiled, unable to bear the intensity of the light. The lead angel, whose presence seemed particularly commanding, spoke with a voice that was both gentle and powerful. The angel said, "Your womb was created with a divine purpose, to nurture and give birth to leaders and deliverers for nations. You were meant to be a vessel of great spiritual significance, but you have strayed from this path." With clarity and divine authority, the angels delivered their instructions. "It is not yet your time. Return to the world and live in a manner that honors God. Embrace the path of righteousness you once knew, and fulfill the destiny you were created for. Go back and live for God's glory," they urged. "Your journey is not over. Use this second chance to reflect His light and fulfill the divine purpose set before you." It was after this statement that I awoke in a hospital bed. The pain was still present but had shifted to a more manageable level. My friends and the medical staff surrounded me. As I slowly regained full consciousness, the memory of my time in hell and the divine intervention I had witnessed felt almost surreal. I was back in the realm of the living, but the experience had left a mark on my soul. The transformation began immediately. The guilt and regret I had felt in hell were replaced with a burning desire to live in accordance with the divine plan revealed to me. I understood now the gravity of my past actions and the profound impact they had on my life and the lives of others. I made a vow to myself and to God to turn my life around. Each day became an opportunity to live with intention and purpose, reflecting the divine grace I had been granted. The harrowing journey I experienced, my descent into darkness, the divine intervention, and the subsequent return to life, taught me invaluable lessons about the depth of my actions and the boundless mercy of God. I learned that every choice we make carries significant weight, and the path we choose has consequences not only for ourselves but for others as well. The torment I faced in hell shows the gravity of turning away from the divine path, while the angelic message revealed the transformative power of redemption and purpose. To anyone listening, we all face temptations and struggles, but it is never too late to seek forgiveness and change our course. The divine intervention I experienced was not only a personal revelation but a message meant for everyone. If you find yourself lost or caught in a cycle of regret and despair, know that redemption is always within reach. Embrace the opportunity for change and seek God's forgiveness. Your life has a divine purpose, and turning back to the path of righteousness can bring fulfillment and peace. Take this moment to reflect on your journey, seek spiritual guidance, and commit to living for God's glory. Your story, like mine, can become a testament to the power of faith and redemption. All right, friends, that brings us to the end of today's experience. Kindly like and share this video with your friends and family so they can get blessed as well. If you are new to our channel, kindly subscribe to our channel to get updated anytime we share experiences sent to us. Thank you. Till our next meeting. God bless you.